Did you see that story in California, by the way, about how they're going to try and reteach math?
What?
They're getting rid of some of the objective standards with regard to math. Because math,
I gotta pee, I'll be back.
They want to get rid of the idea that there are naturally gifted children. They said they're not allowed to say that they're naturally gifted children anymore. You're not allowed to talk about naturally gifted kids. You're not supposed to reward right answers or punish wrong answers. So there's like a big kind of parents' revolt going on in California over this because the idea was that there was too much racial disparity in math performance in California, and so changed the standards. Which, by the way, I can't think of anything more racist than that.
No,
that is so super racist. It's like not enough black kids are scoring well on the test. That means that black kids, I guess, are too dumb to do well on these tests. Get rid of the test. Or alternatively, there's an explanation where kids need to study more.
Well, you only find out if someone knows things if you test them.
By the way, I think this is like I think the scam that is college is predicated on society trying to get around the basic truth that you just said, which is we can tell by test scores whether you know things and are good at.
Dog, you went to Harvard Law, bro. Shut up. Like, Jesus Christ. Motherfucker went to UCLA undergrad and then Harvard Law. He's like, college is a scam. It's like, yeah, it's a scam if you want to make sure that your audience stays dumb. It's so annoying, dude. I hate these people so much. Bro, I was in the gifted program and it literally doesn't do shit other than give you an inflated ego. I don't know. I was not a gifted kid and I'm not a gifted person in general. I'm a fucking idiot. But even as stupid as I am, I still recognize that, like, you know, education is overall a good thing. Not a bad thing. It's a fucking good thing. So shut the fuck up about how it's a bad thing. Oh my Lord, it pisses me off whenever motherfuckers say that. Colleges are a liberal breeding ground, which is why I went to Harvard and I'm a conservative dipshit. Well, first of all, Harvard is very conservative and neoliberalism is what you learn when you go to college. The only difference is that you're put in a diverse environment. So of course, like, you know, you're still hyper conservative when it comes to economics, but at the very least, you're like a little bit more understanding of social justice and social issues as a consequence of living in a rather diverse environment, and also because, like, they do teach you a little bit of social justice. They like pump it into your brain a little bit. Only if you're a gigantic asshole would you ever consider that to be a bad thing. I can't believe we're teaching kids empathy. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? How is that a bad thing, you fucking asshole?
Actually, what you're going to do is you're going to make people more racist is what you're going to do. And the reason for that is because Thomas Sowell talks about this. He talks about different types of discrimination. And he says there's group discrimination where you base your perception of an individual on the group data that is available. And then there's like discrimination, which is you know that a person is smart and they're of a group you don't like, and so you just ignore the fact they're smart because they're from that group. The two examples that he gives, right, is let's say that you're walking down the street at night and it's in an inner city neighborhood and there's a black guy walking down the street and he's wearing a hoodie and he's a young guy, 17 years old. Are you going to cross the street or not if the opposing example is an 80-year-old white woman, right? And he says, well, you know, based on the group statistics, you're probably going to cross the street more often if it's the 17-year-old black kid than if it's the 80-year-old white woman. Now, let's say that 17-year-old white kid, that 17-year-old black kid, you know the kid. He's a nice kid. If you still cross the street, that's what makes you like a super giant racist.
What? So much of what Ben Shapiro says is so fucking stupid, dude. I don't even understand. Like, he's just like, he's literally doing self-reporting on the timeline. Racism is only when you know a black person and you still are afraid of them. What the fuck? My man just described racial bias and then said it's not racist if you have racial bias.
Group discrimination where you base your perception of an individual on the group data that is available. And then there's like discrimination, which is you know that a person is smart and they're of a group you don't like, and so you just ignore the fact they're smart.
Both of those are still discriminatory, you fucking idiot. Looking at group data? Why is this still an argument? In 2021, in the year of our holy Lord, why is it still a reasonable argument to make? It's also one that you never make about the default position, a white man. White men are responsible for an overwhelming amount of pedophilia. Does that mean that, like, you suspect every white man is a pedophile? No, that would be discriminatory against white men. It's also not something that people do. It's nuts. Like, the whole point is you're literally fucking biased against black people, and you're trying to ad hoc justify that by claiming, well, the data makes it reasonable for me to be biased against black people and be afraid of black people. You don't think that, like, every white man is a fucking mass shooter and a pedophile? And I know people in the chat are going to meme like, oh, I do, though. I do. Yeah, I got it, bro. Really funny. Men are trash. Men are trash. And then they fucking turn around and go, statistics are racist. Statistics are racist. It's like, no, dude. Statistics are not racist. Your interpretation and what you extrapolate from the data is racist, you dumb bitch. Yeah, if you look at it and go, well, sorry, black men are more violent inherently, or not inherently. He won't say that, obviously. And that's that's what the data shows without even looking at the data and what it actually says. And then also on top of that, jump to the conclusion that like every black person that you see, well, you know, you have a higher likelihood of being biased against them because you are operating in the underlying assumption that they're more violent because the data says so. Then yeah, you're doing racism with extra steps, okay? You have an inherent bias against black people, and you're using a couple extra steps to try to describe why that's a justifiable bias to have. It doesn't mean that you don't have a bias. You do have one. You are admitting that you have one, but then you're simultaneously trying to justify why you have it. So don't act like the conversation is about like whether you have a bias or not. The conversation now is why you have that bias. It's such a weird fucking take to just like constantly say this over and over again. And like, this is a big chunk of what the Republican argument revolves around. And the greatest example of this is looking at arrest records and extrapolating that like black people are more violent as a consequence of that, and then using that to justify over-policing black communities, which is literally a cyclical problem. We know that when there are more cops, there are more arrests. We know that cops also tend to be very biased and prosecute and go after black people at higher rates. Looking at something as simple as marijuana use, for example, white people and black people, depending on where you look at, consume weed at a similar rate. And in some instances, actually, white people smoke more weed than black people do. But when you look to the actual data, black people are arrested way more frequently than white people do for crimes that revolve around marijuana, and also get longer sentences, even when you control the other factors at play. It's just the reality. So if you simply look at the fucking arrest records without recognizing any sort of like historical context, all you're doing is basically trying to put together a patchwork reason for the biases that you believe in. All the discrepancies in stop and frisk laws, for example, exactly. And it exists in like nearly every fucking part of the criminal justice system. So like Ben Shapiro is so dishonest that he refuses to, you know, even mention any of this stuff.
Now, let's say that 17-year-old white kid, that 17-year-old black kid, you know the kid. He's a nice kid. If you still cross the street, that's what makes you like a super giant racist.
Yeah, that's idiotic, dude. Yeah. Everybody knows that, you know, the Nazis and what they did in the Holocaust was bad only because they personally knew all the Jews beforehand. Like, okay, dude, got it. Good. You can only be racist if you fucking know the person beforehand and you still act out on the biased desires. What a fucking insane, absolutely insane fucking take, dude. Yeah, discrimination and racism only exists if you know someone and you still decide that they are lesser than.
Problem is that using group data available very often is wrong, right? What if the 17-year-old kid is a nice kid, right? You shouldn't be doing that either. You need specific data. Test data is specific data. So let's say now that you are an administrator at a college and you're not allowed to use test data. All you know is that on average, black kids score lower than white kids, right? So who do you let in? How do you make that decision? Wouldn't it be better for black kids for you to have the test data because you know which black kids definitely deserve to get in as opposed to which ones don't deserve to get in? So you start using stupid generalizations. The whole point is more specific data is better. More specific data fights discrimination. And yet we have this whole weird idea that if we get rid of specific data, if we get rid of test data, objective data, this is going to end discrimination. Precisely the reverse will occur. People will start using stupid stereotypes.
I don't even know exactly what he's talking about, but I guess this is going to be the new, like, the new conservative battleground. So I guess, you know, crack our knuckles and learn about what this new thing that conservatives want to fucking cry about. California tries to close the gap in math, but sets off a backlash. Proposed guidelines in the state would de-emphasize calculus, reject the idea that some children are naturally gifted, and build a connection to social justice. Critics say math shouldn't be political. If everything had gone according to plan, California would have approved new guidelines this month in math and education in public schools. But ever since the draft was open for public commentary in February, their recommendations have set a fierce debate over not only how to teach math, but also how to solve a problem more intractable than Fermat's last theorem, closing the racial and socioeconomic disparities in achievement that persist at every level of math education. I'm a leftist. I believe that the disparity in education directly ties to what we talked about yesterday for a very long time. It goes back to systemic racism. It goes back to redlining. It goes back to how to distribute the property taxes in localities back to those very wealthy and historically white, predominantly white neighborhoods that end up having good education in their public schooling system versus the material inequality that's built into the system for black people as a consequence of redlining, as a consequence of not having enough intergenerational wealth, as a consequence of slavery, as a consequence of Jim Crow laws, and the like. There's a reason why if you are living in fucking Crenshaw your opportunities in education are way worse than if you literally live in a rich neighborhood like Beverly Hills. So the way to solve that problem is by addressing the material inequality, by reshifting our priorities to fund public education adequately in all neighborhoods, maybe even funding black and brown neighborhoods or poor neighborhoods more so that we can create a reasonable level of equality in our public education system. Now, of course, Democrats and Republicans both do not want to address that because that would mean taking taxes away from wealthy people and reappropriating those taxes back into neighborhoods where poor people live, neighborhoods where black people live. And God forbid we fucking do that. So instead of doing that, Democrats suggest charter schools, which further cripple the public education system, take funds that are already in this like destitute and broken down system that gets breadcrumbs, take those remaining funds away from them and give it to unaccountable private schools that are charter schools, right? And then say, oh, you get a voucher, school choice, or fully privatize schooling, which has demonstrably been a failure in a place like Sweden, for example, which is why they immediately abandoned that when they saw their test scores fucking fail across the board. There are numerous examples when you look at OECD nations of privatization in the K through 12 education system being a gigantic problem as it pertains to the schooling that individuals are receiving. So if Ben wants to talk about data, when it comes to schooling, public education, adequately funded public education, is always going to beat out a patchwork system that we have, just like every other patchwork system that we have that has been a demonstrable failure, like healthcare. So, having said all of that, what did the California libtards do? So instead of solving the inequality in education with material restitution or by addressing the material inequalities, they are going to try doing all this other dumb shit. California guidelines, which are not binding, could overhaul the way many school districts approach the math instruction. Draft rejected the idea of naturally gifted children, recommended against shifting certain students into accelerated courses in middle school, and try to promote high-level math courses that could serve as alternatives to calculus like data science or statistics. The draft also suggested that math should not be colorblind and that teachers could use lessons to explore social justice, for example, by looking at gender stereotypes and word problems, or applying math concepts like the topic of immigration or inequality. What the fuck? What? I fucking hate liberals so much. It's like they will literally do anything but give black people money, okay? Like, just give black people money. Just please, just literally stop. What the fuck is this? What are you doing? Like, they will literally do anything, okay? Like, how? How do you do this? How? Like, what is this? Like, in a math class? Like, we're going to talk about gender stereotypes and you know, apply math concepts to topics like immigration or inequality. What are you solving when you do that? Ultimately, this is like inconsequential, okay? It literally doesn't matter. Getting upset at this one way or the other is idiotic and pathetic, and that's precisely what, you know, conservatives do. I'm mad at it because this does not address anything, okay? This doesn't address any of the fucking problems, and it just makes you feel good. Why is it always about like feel-good solutions to material inequality? Oh God, we can't tax people. We can't reappropriate funds to people that need it, but we'll make you feel better. We'll make ourselves feel better like we're doing something. It's like one big endless sequence of fucking patting yourself on the back for, I did something. It is lawn sign liberalism. Exactly. That's a perfect term for it. In this house, black people are human beings, unless they want to come into my neighborhood, in which case I will call the cops on them. I mean, like, it's just so stupid. Like, who are you helping with this? It's a super minor point in the overall plan that is an aesthetic bombshell for the right. Absolutely. If Donald Trump is locking up 5 kids in cages and Joe Biden ends up locking up 3 kids in cages, which president should deserve to win re-election? Like, that's your immigration baked into fucking math, dude. Come on. We're learning algebra today, kids. Like, none of these motherfuckers know about math, like math, literally don't want math to be taught if it were up to them. But when God forbid you add like you sprinkle a little bit of fucking wokeness on it, okay? All of a sudden everyone's like, whoa, what the fuck? Maybe English should be taught. Maybe you should fucking speak 2 languages fluently and better than native speakers. And then we can have that conversation, American dummies, okay? Sometimes I fuck up. Suck my dick. Isn't it trying to address the difference between testing scores of poor and wealthy neighborhoods? I'm not saying this is a good attempt, but maybe in the right direction. No, it's not in the fucking right direction. If you want to solve the problem of like poor testing in test scores in black neighborhoods versus white ones, you have to solve the problem of reallocation and redistribution of funds. If you trap funds into the specific districts where people are paying higher taxes on their fucking on their property, that then directly funds the school in that district, which then also creates a cycle where your house is more expensive year over year because now you're in a good school district rather than a bad school district. You know what I mean? It all still ties back to the fucking investment vehicle concept that people have over shelter, which is really fucking triggering and annoying. But that's how it works. But God forbid, dude, you think these fucking liberals, oh my Lord, you think these liberals even for a second would allow their fucking taxes that they pay, their high property taxes that they pay for their nice homes in fucking California would go to like a different neighborhood? Oh, God forbid, dude. You know motherfuckers would lose their shit. It also promoted something called detracking, which keeps students together longer instead of separating high achievers in the advanced class before high school. I don't know if that's a bad thing. Is that a bad thing? Is there like data that shows that like putting kids in like a higher level, like immediately advancing certain kids, it doesn't help the ones struggling? Yeah, I feel like it's probably better for the ones that are struggling because all of a sudden the students that are left behind are neglected. But I don't know. There might be research that proves me wrong, and I genuinely don't know. But what I do know is this, and this has been proven time and time again. If you fund schools adequately, instead of locking school funding into immediate districts where property values are higher and therefore property taxes are higher, you are going to be able to get better education results across the board. So more funding is necessary, not less. But unfortunately, both Democrats and Republicans advocate for less funding, whether it's advocating for charter schools or straight up school voucher programs for private schools. Both of those things take away funds from the public schooling system and redistribute those funds back to unaccountable private schools, some of which who fail, by the way. But because they're unaccountable, it doesn't even fucking matter. So after this Ben Shapiro video, there's another one. We're going to move on to the Facebook's odd metaverse move.
I'm really fascinated by this decision of Facebook to change the name of Facebook to Meta, the metaverse, which I think people are just gonna they're gonna realize that this is a crazy idea that you're going to give your life to some sort of augmented or virtual reality world that's created by a guy who's involved in this company whose algorithms are sowing the seeds of distrust and hate. But now we're going to fucking let him take over what you see and feel.
By the way, when people say, like when Joe Rogan says like you're sowing the seeds, the algorithm is sowing the seeds of hatred or whatever the fuck, he doesn't literally mean the algorithms are, actually creating people to believe in vaccine misinformation or are responsible for like a genocide in Myanmar or, actively fucking creating a situation where like basically there's adult onset schizophrenia that like 90% of conservatives are brought upon themselves, where they like literally think in this psychotic delusion that the government is run by fucking pedophilic vampire monsters and shit like that. He means the opposite. Like conservatives are getting fucking owned on the timeline, and that's bad. And they actually are hiding the truth about ivermectin. So just remember, which is of course ridiculous. Imagine sitting across from Ben motherfucking Shabibo. Ben, Facebook is my primary platform, Shabibo. And criticizing the Facebook algorithm, which, of course, Ben has like made a living shitting on the Facebook algorithm, crying to fucking legislators, crying to people that actually have lobbying power to lobby Facebook to change its algorithm in an effort that favors him, who is literally one of the most successful broadcasters on the platform. He will still, of course, cry about, oh man, conservatives are getting owned on Facebook. Facebook algo is censoring us. The top 10 performing link posts by U.S. Facebook pages in the last 24 hours are from Ben Shapiro, Dan Bongino, All K-Pop, NPR, Dan Bongino, Newsmax, twice, Ben Shapiro.
You and I are of a different generation, dude. I think there are a lot of kids who are growing up in Fortnite world and spend a lot, and I think the pandemic really accelerated this. What if you spend your entire life, from the time you're a little kid, interacting with screens? What if those screens are getting increasingly sophisticated so that they are...
What if those screens actually have someone like, socialist Twitch streamer, this HasanAbi guy, okay, HasanAbi. He's out here talking about socialism this, socialism that. Why doesn't he socialize some bitches?
What if there's a world where you actually can be and everybody sees you the way you want to be seen? Would you rather live there where you're like rich and good looking and everybody likes you? Or would you rather live in the real world where you're disconnected from all of that and you end up with like Ready Player One world? I think.
What if you get to live in a world where you can please your wife and she no longer has to sleep in a separate bed in a separate room? What if you live in a world where your wife actually does have a wet ass P word rather than a dry ass P word? Did he say tall Oh no, I missed it. I gotta run that again.
I think, would you rather live there where you're like rich and good looking and everybody likes you, or would you rather live in the real world where?
Oh man, he didn't say tall. I got you baited into thinking he actually said tall. That would have been fucking sick. That would have been funny as fuck, dude. If you're like tall and play basketball and you're actually good.
It's going to take time, whether it's 5 years or 10 years. If you go back and look at Pong, which was the first game that I ever saw when I was a child, it's
freaking boomer, dude. I mean, this guy plays Quake.
just a matter of time.
And what I wonder is if we are innovating ourselves, and when it comes to this stuff, if we're innovating ourselves out of existence as a civilization.
But don't you think that's probably where this goes, no matter what?
No, I think then the barbarians come to the gate. I think that's what happens.
Really?
Because the real world still exists. So if you innovate an entire generation of people, let's just take this on the most baseline demographic level. None of them get married. None of them have babies. In 2 generations, this ain't going to matter. You're going to have a good time in the virtual reality, and then there are going to be no babies to carry this on. And the only people on Earth are going to be religious Jews, religious Catholics.
What the fuck? Dude, this is like, I mean, this is just madness. Like this, every part of this take is just like insane, dude. I don't know how else to describe it other than just like, what a psychotic fucking take, dude. My man said slippery slopes. I slide down them, okay? I not only am the size of a child and have the brain of one, I also slide on slippery slopes like a child. Do you understand?
Right. What happens if you've taken an entire generation of people, told them that their entire life exists online, they don't have to interact with other humans, they don't have to interact in human ways with other humans, and then there's like an entire other Earth out there that isn't doing any of this. Right. By the way, China's not doing this. Right.
No.
China's banned.
This is like not true. It's literally not true. They take like 1 or 2 things from China that fits their narrative, and they're like, China's not doing this. They're actually doing the opposite. It's like, no, you read one article that was like immediately falsified like a day later. And you just think that that's what's going on in China. That's not even happening in China.
Banning it.
Yeah.
China's banning it. China's saying you're not allowed to go online certain days of the week if you're a kid. Right? We're going to ban the kind of stuff that you can see. So in the long run, which civilization is going to be more durable? The one that actually understands the vulnerabilities of human nature, or the one that says we're going to use those vulnerabilities to make you feel
like China literally has talent farms for Twitch streamers, okay? It's so nuts to just act like the world's single-handedly largest consumer of like mobile games and single-handedly largest consumer of like fucking just everything electronic is actually simultaneously taking serious measures to stop people from engaging in the internet and in the online space. Motherfucker also only loves China when he suspects that they are, in a very authoritarian capacity, stopping people from doing what they want to do on the internet. Like, this is wild. China, terrible when it comes to building high-speed rail. Very bad. Not good at all. China, not good at distributing the overwhelming amount of wealth that they've been able to fucking capture from greedy American capital owners by throwing their labor force at the problem, but still, trying to build certain parts of the economy in a very effective way and eradicating poverty through socialized programs. Very bad. China, very good when they stop you from playing video games, even though they're not, but I thought that they are because I read an article that said that they are.
Here's what killed me about the pandemic, honestly. Like, what killed me? The level of conditioning that it took in order to rejigger how people think was so low. It shocked the hell out of me. It really shocked me. I was talking to my business partner, Jeremy Boring. Early on in the pandemic, he was like, people aren't going to stand for this. Like, when they'd shut everything down, it's like 3 months from now, people are going to be losing their minds. They're going to be out on the streets protesting to get rid of the masks, and they're going to be out at ball games again. I was like, that's not right. I think it'll take a year. We're like a year and a half in, and half the country's still like, well, what if this just kind of continues? Like, all right, I guess. Like, the amount of dependency that was bred by people saying, just go back to your house, and people be like...
That's not even true, dude. What the fuck? First of all, humans are... The most profound capability of human beings is their capacity to adapt to circumstances. Like, we make the most of the situation that we're forced into. So that's not really like a incredible fucking assessment. But even then, people absolutely fucking hated it. Like, this idea that human beings love being trapped indoors is so fucking categorically false. Like, you can see that with foot traffic. You can see that with the willingness that people had to, like, move into the post-pandemic world. You can measure that with how much COVID spread. It's like a very specific subsect of people that personally are like either agoraphobic or have social anxiety that wanted to stay indoors and were most likely staying indoors regardless unless they were forced to, that are not fucking doing that. But other than that, most people want to go outside. That's crazy.
human beings are really adaptable. And this is something that Brett Weinstein and Heather Heying talk about, right? That's our superpower. We're super duper adaptable.
You hate to see that. I'm going to be honest with you. You fucking hate to see that. When you're in agreement with Brett Weinstein.
The sophistication of computer systems has reached the point now where you can look at it 20 years from now and you kind of get an understanding of where it's going to be. When you're dealing with what's possible now, I don't think you're going to be able to stop people from doing it because I think it's going to be so overwhelmingly addictive. You look at how many people are just addicted to looking at their Instagram.
Yep.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
It's nothing. The dopamine hit you get off of this little phone, it's minimal, but people are completely all in on it.
Yep. I do wonder if there's going to be, and I wonder what you think about this, if there's going to be a bifurcation in the same way there's been a bifurcation about so many issues between the people at the top of sort of the elite spectrum and the rest of the population, where the people at the elite spectrum are making the metaverse, but their kids aren't actually in the metaverse.
Right. Like Steve Jobs didn't let his kid use an iPad.
Exactly. Like, I'm on the internet. My kids are 7, 5, and 1. They're not allowed to, we don't have the TV on in our house. My kids
Wait, so he's saying he's one of the elites? He's like, I'm not letting my kids do that shit. Also, I am simultaneously on the internet all the time and make a living off of the internet. But I will not let my kids be on the internet. Do people not realize how shit VR is right now? Yeah, people don't get it. People that talk about VR in this way have actually never used a VR system because it would take you about 15 minutes before you feel like you want to throw up if you ever fucking touched a VR system as it is currently, and how bulky it is, how expensive it is, and how like unfortunately, and I love the idea, I love the concept, but like VR is not great right now. With the exponential growth of technology, who knows? Maybe we can get there in like 10 years. People say 50. I think you could get there in 10. This notion that like, we're going to be trapped in this VR world. Like it's going to be like the Matrix, this false reality. I think it's understandable to be afraid of that. I don't think that's necessarily the wrong take. I do think that the internet has harmed us. It's been incredible, but it's also harmed us in like many, many different ways that we simply currently still do not understand. I don't necessarily disagree with both what Ben Shapiro and Joe Rogan are saying right now. I mean, one of the earliest pioneers of VR, kind of behind that take, so it's reasonable in my opinion. He's a Stanford professor. No, I don't think that's the wrong thing. Like, think about how much the Instagram points that you get, like how much they affect your real life. Like your point of view, IRL. We do things in the real world, in the physical space, in an effort to gain points in the fake world that we have created, with a fake system that we've created in that fake world, to get a rush of dopamine. And it can be good, but it also can create a lot of mental health complications. If only there was a way to, I don't know, make the real world, the physical space that we exist in, feel, more rewarding, more fulfilling. Maybe if we had some more time to ourselves to pursue activities that are fulfilling, for example. Maybe we, I don't know, didn't feel so much alienation from our labor. That could be one reason. I don't know. Maybe we could feel like we could effectively communicate change if we wanted to. Nah, fuck that. That's not how it works. That would be ridiculous. Tom was literally dying IRL because of GTRP. Yeah, I mean, Grand Theft Auto roleplay was actively killing me. That is true. It isn't fake, though. We have real interaction with real people online. It's not the same as real interactions in the physical space, though. Let's be real. Like, it's just not.
My kids don't get internet access until like 18. Like, that is not a thing I want.
18?
They can be out of my house and they can get internet.
Rebel. They're going to do drugs. They're going to be in the street. Your kids are going to turn tricks.
Well,
it's going to be a real problem. Tricks.
Yeah, Ben doesn't want his daughters watching the HasanAbi broadcast and then becoming little socialists. You know what I mean? That's why he doesn't want them on the internet.